The rescue. The evacuation alarm's shriek pierced through the metallic corridors of Siren 4, humanity's furthest colony from Earth. I wiped the sweat from my brow, leaving a streak of grease across my forehead. The maintenance panel in front of me flickered with warning lights, each one representing another system failure in our rapidly deteriorating infrastructure. Above us, the asteroid storm continued its relentless assault on our shields. "Marcus, get out of there." Station Chief Reynolds' voice crackled through my comm unit. "The structural integrity in Section 7 is failing. We're evacuating everyone to the emergency bunkers." I grabbed my toolkit, already moving. "Just need to stabilize the oxygen recyclers. 2 minutes, tops." "Negative. That's an order, Marcus. Get to safety now." The fear in Reynolds' voice should have convinced me. But I'd spent 5 years keeping Siren 4's systems running, patching together solutions with whatever we had on hand. These recyclers weren't just machinery to me, they were lifelines for the 3,000 colonists who called this place home. "Almost done," I muttered, more to myself than Reynolds. My fingers flew across the control panel, implementing emergency protocols I'd developed for exactly this situation. The recycler's rhythmic hum stabilized, and I allowed myself a small smile. That's when the first support beam gave way. The sound was devastating, a screech of tortured metal that seemed to go on forever. I turned to run, but the floor beneath me buckled. Another beam came down, and suddenly I was pinned, the weight crushing against my chest. The emergency lights bathed everything in a hellish red glow. I tried to reach my comm unit, but it had been knocked loose in the chaos. The air was getting thin, whether from a breach or the damaged recyclers, I couldn't tell. Black spots danced at the edges of my vision. That's when I saw her. At first, I thought she was a hallucination brought on by oxygen deprivation. She seemed to materialize from the shadows themselves, her form ethereal and otherworldly. Her skin had a silvery sheen that reflected the emergency lights, creating patterns that shouldn't have been possible. But what caught my attention most were her eyes, swirling pools of colors I had no names for, colors that shouldn't exist in our spectrum. She moved with impossible grace through the destruction around us. The beam that had me pinned, easily weighing several tons, she lifted as if it were made of foam. Her touch, when she helped me up, was surprisingly warm and solid for someone who looked so ethereal. "You are important," she said, but her voice didn't come through my ears. It resonated directly in my mind, carrying with it impressions of starlight and vast distances. Before I could process what was happening, she was guiding me through the collapsing corridor. Debris that should have blocked our path seemed to move aside of its own accord. The air around her rippled like heat waves over desert sand. We emerged into one of the emergency airlocks, but instead of heading toward the bunkers, she pressed her hand against the outer door. It opened without any of the usual safety protocols engaging, revealing not the harsh vacuum of space, but the interior of a vessel unlike anything I'd ever seen. The ship, if you could call it that, seemed more alive than mechanical. Its surfaces shifted and flowed like liquid metal, yet remained solid underfoot. The walls pulsed with soft light that followed our movement, and there was a constant, almost subliminal hum that reminded me of whale songs I'd heard in old Earth documentaries. "Wait," I managed to say as she led me deeper into the vessel. "The colony, those people need help." She turned to face me, her impossible eyes fixing me with a gaze that seemed to peer straight into my soul. "The colony will survive. The asteroid storm is being diverted as we speak." She gestured to a wall, which became transparent, showing me Siren 4 below. True to her word, I could see the asteroids that had been bombarding us changing course, as if pushed by an invisible hand. "Who are you?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "I am Arya," she replied, the name carrying with it a sense of ancient knowledge and purpose that made me shiver. "And you, Marcus Chen, are far more important than you realize." The ship's interior shifted again, forming what appeared to be a control center. Displays materialized from the flowing walls, showing star charts and data streams I couldn't begin to comprehend. Arya moved to what I assumed was the main console, though it looked more like a pool of liquid starlight than any computer I'd ever seen. "Your world is in danger," she said, her mental voice grave. "Not just Siren 4, but Earth itself. A threat is coming that humanity is not prepared to face." The displays changed, showing what looked like a massive shadow moving between the stars. "We have been watching, waiting for the right moment, the right person." She turned back to me. "You are the last link in a chain that has been forming for millennia." I shook my head, trying to clear it. The events of the last hour felt like a dream, but the ache in my chest where the beam had pinned me was very real. "I'm just a maintenance engineer," I protested. "I fix things until the real experts arrive." "Whatever you think I am." "You are exactly what you need to be," Arya interrupted. "Your ability to see patterns, to understand systems and how they connect, it is not accident or coincidence. You were designed for this, Marcus. Your entire genetic line was carefully cultivated across generations." The implications of what she was saying hit me like another falling beam. Cultivated? By whom? For what purpose? Arya's expression softened slightly, though those alien eyes remained intense. "By my people. The Guardians. We have watched over humanity since its earliest days, guiding your evolution in subtle ways." She gestured, and the displays showed what looked like human DNA, but with patterns I'd never seen before. "You carry within you a key, a genetic sequence that, when properly activated, will allow you to interface with technology far beyond human understanding. Technology we will need to prevent the coming catastrophe." I slumped against one of the shifting walls, which immediately formed something like a chair to support me. The universe as I knew it was unraveling around me, replaced by something far stranger and more terrifying. "And if I refuse? If I don't want any part of this?" Arya's gaze bore into mine. "Then humanity falls. The shadow comes, and your species joins the countless others that have been consumed across the eons." She moved closer, her presence filling my awareness. "I know this is overwhelming. But you have already shown the courage and determination we need, staying to fix those recyclers despite orders to evacuate. That same spirit, combined with the potential within your genes, makes you unique in all of humanity. The last link we have spent millennia forging." Through the transparent wall, I could see Siren 4 growing smaller as we moved away from it. My home for the past 5 years, and before that, Earth, everything I'd ever known was falling away. Yet something in Arya's words resonated with a part of me I hadn't known existed. All my life, I'd felt different, saw the world in ways others didn't seem to. The way systems connected, the patterns in chaos, they'd always made a kind of sense to me that I couldn't explain. "What exactly do you need me to do?" I asked finally. Arya's expression remained neutral, but I felt a surge of approval through our mental connection. "First, you must understand who you truly are. Then, we must awaken what lies dormant within you. After that." She turned back to the console, and the displays showed a journey through star systems I'd never seen. "After that, we prepare for war." The ship hummed around us, its living walls rippling with patterns that seemed to match my racing heartbeat. As Siren 4 disappeared from view, replaced by the endless starfield, I realized my old life had ended the moment Arya appeared in that collapsing corridor. Whatever came next would change not just me, but the fate of humanity itself. I just hoped I was ready for it. The awakening. Time moved differently aboard Arya's ship. Days blended together in a symphony of shifting metals and pulsing lights. The vessel, which Arya called the Nexus, responded to her thoughts with an intimacy that made me both envious and uneasy. I'd always prided myself on understanding complex systems, but this technology operated on principles that defied everything I knew about physics and engineering. "Your discomfort is natural," Arya said one morning, or what passed for morning in the endless void of space. You're trying to understand quantum-entangled biosynthetics through the lens of conventional mechanics. I looked up from the floating display I'd been studying, which showed what appeared to be my own DNA structure, though it was unlike any double helix I'd seen before. Certain sequences glowed with an odd luminescence, pulsing in patterns that seemed almost familiar. You keep saying I was designed for this, I said, watching the strange genetic dance. But how? Why me? Why my family line? Aria's iridescent eyes swirled with new colors as she approached. The answer lies in your most distant ancestors. When my people first came to Earth, we found a species with remarkable potential. Early humans possessed a unique genetic malleability, an ability to adapt and evolve at rates we'd never seen before. The display changed, showing a timeline of human evolution, but with markers and annotations I'd never seen in any scientific text. We introduced certain modifications. Subtle changes that would be passed down through specific bloodlines. Your family carries the most successful of these modifications. I thought about my parents, both brilliant engineers who died in the Mars colony disaster when I was young. About my grandmother, who could look at any broken machine and instantly know how to fix it. The way we see patterns, that's part of it. It's more than that, Arya replied. The patterns you see are reality's underlying code. The Guardians exist partly outside normal spacetime. We see the universe as it truly is, a vast interconnected system of energy and information. Your bloodline was designed to bridge the gap between human perception and our own. She gestured, and the ship's wall beside us transformed into what looked like a training area, complete with various alien devices I couldn't begin to identify. It's time to wake up what lies dormant within you. The next several hours were unlike anything I'd experienced before. Arya guided me through exercises that seemed simple at first, identifying patterns in seemingly random energy fields, predicting how the ship's living walls would shift and flow. But as we progressed, something began to change in my perception. It started subtly. The ship's constant hum took on new meanings, becoming a language I could almost understand. The flowing patterns in the walls resolved into complex equations, describing the very fabric of spacetime itself. When I looked at Arya, I could see not just her physical form, but layers of energy and information that extended beyond normal space. Good, she said, though her voice now carried even more layers of meaning than before. You're beginning to see. The awakening, as she called it, was not without its costs. Headaches plagued me as my brain struggled to process information it was never meant to handle. Sometimes the new perceptions became overwhelming, and I would find myself curled up in a corner, trying to shut out the flood of data that assaulted my senses. Your mind is restructuring itself, Arya explained during one such episode, her presence somehow helping to calm the chaos. The dormant sequences in your DNA are activating, creating new neural pathways. It will take time to adjust. But adjust I did. Each day brought new revelations and abilities. I learned to read the quantum states of objects around me, to see the probability waves that governed reality itself. The ship's systems, which had seemed impossibly alien before, began to make a strange kind of sense. It was during one of our training sessions that I first felt it, a dark distortion in the fabric of reality, like a wound in space itself. The sensation was so shocking that I physically recoiled. You sensed it, Arya said, her mental voice grave. The shadow. The displays around us changed, showing what my newfound senses had detected. A vast darkness moved between the stars, consuming light and energy wherever it went. But it wasn't just a physical phenomenon, it was something more, something that existed in dimensions I was only beginning to comprehend. What we call the shadow is an entity that exists primarily in higher dimensions, Arya explained. It feeds on complexity itself, breaking down advanced civilizations into their component parts. Dozens of species have fallen to it across the galaxy. Earth is its next target. I watched in horror as the displays showed simulations of the shadow's previous attacks. Entire solar systems went dark as the complexity of life itself was stripped away, leaving only basic elements behind. How do we fight something like that? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. With complexity of our own, Arya replied. She waved her hand, and new displays appeared, showing technology that made the Nexus look primitive by comparison. The Guardians created vast networks of quantum-entangled systems throughout the galaxy, designed to maintain the very fabric of spacetime. But they're failing, and we need someone who can interface with them in new ways. Someone who can see the patterns and adapt them to fight an enemy that exists outside normal space. Someone like me, I said, finally understanding the true scope of what I'd been designed for. Yes. But you're not ready yet. Arya's expression softened slightly. There's more you need to learn, and we're not alone in this fight. There are others like you, not many, but enough to matter. We need to find them. The displays showed what looked like a star map, with certain points pulsing with the same strange luminescence I'd seen in my DNA. Other bloodlines? Yes. Each designed for a different aspect of what's to come. You are the last and most important piece, but without the others, victory is impossible. I stood there, watching the patterns of light that represented humanity's last hope, and felt the weight of millennia of planning settling onto my shoulders. The maintenance engineer from Siren seemed like a distant memory now, replaced by something both more and less than human. When do we start? I asked. Arya's response came not in words but in a surge of images and emotions through our mental link. I saw distant worlds, hidden bases where other modified humans waited, unaware of their true nature. I saw vast machines sleeping in the spaces between stars, waiting to be awakened. And beneath it all, I felt the approaching darkness of the shadow, its hunger growing with each passing moment. We already have, Arya said aloud. The question is whether we'll be ready when the shadow arrives. The ship's walls pulsed with new patterns, and I realized with my enhanced perception that we were changing course. Somewhere out there, another piece of this cosmic puzzle waited to be found. Another person like me, carrying the weight of humanity's future in their genes. I just hoped we'd find them before the shadow found us. The shadow revealed. The first time I died, I was trying to interface with a quantum beacon hidden in the ruins of an ancient alien city on Kepler 186f. My consciousness had stretched too far, reached into too many dimensions at once, and my physical form simply couldn't handle the strain. For 3 minutes and 42 seconds, by the Nexus's count, my heart stopped beating. Arya brought me back, of course. The ship's medical systems were far beyond anything humanity had dreamed of. But those 3 minutes changed everything. In death, I saw what we were truly facing, and the knowledge haunts me still. You weren't supposed to do that, Arya chided as I recovered in the ship's medical bay. The walls around us pulsed with concerned patterns, the Nexus itself seemingly worried about my condition. The beacon's quantum fields weren't calibrated for human consciousness. But I saw it, I whispered, my voice hoarse. I saw what the shadow really is. Arya's swirling eyes fixed on me with new intensity. Tell me. The memories were already fading, like trying to hold on to a dream, but certain images remained crystal clear. It's not just one entity. The shadow, it's what's left of them. The ones who came before. The medical bay's displays shifted, responding to my thoughts as I tried to explain what I'd witnessed. Images formed of ancient civilizations, species that had evolved and advanced far beyond humanity's current level. But with each image came a sense of profound wrongness, of something fundamental being twisted out of shape. They tried to transcend physical existence, I continued, the words coming faster now. Whole civilizations attempting to evolve beyond matter itself. But something went wrong. They became untethered. Trapped between dimensions, unable to fully exist in any one state of reality. Arya's mental voice carried a weight of confirmation. Yes. The shadow is a composite consciousness, formed from the merged remnants of countless failed ascensions. It consumes complexity because it's trying to find a way back to physical existence. But that's not the worst part. I sat up, ignoring the protests of my still recovering body. They're aware. All of them. Trillions of beings trapped in a perpetual state of quantum flux, their consciousness merged but not unified. And they're in pain. The displays showed new images now, my enhanced perceptions translating what I'd seen in death into something almost comprehensible. The shadow wasn't just moving through space, it was writhing, a mass of tortured consciousness trying desperately to claw its way back into normal spacetime. That's why it targets advanced civilizations, Arya confirmed. It's drawn to complexity because that's what it lost. Each civilization it consumes is another attempt to reconstruct physical existence. But it can't succeed. The process only adds more consciousness to the collective, making it larger and more unstable. And now it's coming for Earth. The reality of that threat felt different now that I understood what we were facing. How do we stop something like that? It's not evil, it's just suffering. That's why we need the others. Arya gestured, and the medical bay's displays showed the star map again, but now I could see it with my enhanced perception. The pulsing points of light weren't just locations, they were resonances, echoes of genetic patterns similar to my own. Each modified bloodline was designed to interface with different aspects of Guardian technology, Arya explained. Yours is the last and most crucial, but we need all of them to implement the final protocol. What final protocol? Before Arya could answer, the ship's ambient hum changed pitch dramatically. New displays materialized, showing a distortion in nearby space. We've been found, Arya said, her mental voice tight with concern. The shadow has agents, physical beings who serve it in exchange for promises of transcendence. They've been hunting us since we left Siren 4. The Nexus's walls rippled with defensive patterns as 3 ships emerged from fold space. They were darker than the void itself, their hulls seeming to absorb both light and reason. Get to the control center, Arya commanded. You're strong enough now to help pilot. I ran through the shifting corridors, my enhanced senses reading the ship's quantum states as easily as I once read pressure gauges and temperature readings. The Nexus was afraid, not in any way a human would understand fear, but I could feel its consciousness recoiling from the wrongness of the pursuing vessels. The control center had transformed itself for combat, displays showing probability vectors and quantum targeting solutions. I placed my hands on the main console, and this time there was no barrier between my consciousness and the ship's systems. We merged, my awakened genes allowing me to interface directly with the quantum-entangled biosynthetics. The first attack came as a ripple in spacetime itself. The enemy ships weren't firing conventional weapons, they were trying to locally alter the fundamental constants of physics. If they succeeded, the Nexus's atomic structure would simply cease to be coherent. But that's where my gift came in. I could see the pattern of their attack, the mathematical structure of their attempted alterations. With Arya's guidance, I began to weave countermeasures, using the ship's systems to reinforce local spacetime. We can't beat them in a direct fight, Arya said as she worked alongside me. We need to get to the others first. Everything depends on completing the circle. The displays showed our nearest destination, a research outpost on Europa, where another modified human waited, unaware of their true nature. But the enemy ships were between us and the Jupiter system. That's when I saw it, a pattern within patterns, a way to use the enemy's own weapons against them. Arya, the quantum fluctuations they're generating, if we modify our drive field to resonate at the right frequency. I didn't need to finish the thought. Arya saw the pattern too, and the Nexus responded instantly to our combined will. The ship's drive field shifted, establishing a harmonic relationship with the enemy's spacetime distortions. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then reality itself seemed to hiccup. The enemy ships disappeared, trapped in a loop of their own twisted spacetime. It wouldn't hold them for long, but it didn't need to. Plot a course for Europa, I said, still linked with the ship's systems. And tell me more about this final protocol. What exactly are we working toward? Aria's response came in layers of thought and emotion. The Guardians built a network of quantum anchors throughout the galaxy, points of absolute stability in spacetime. With the right interface, they could be used to reshape things. Reshape what things? Reality itself. Aria's mental voice was grave. We're not just fighting the shadow, Marcus. We're going to try to cure it. To give those trapped consciousnesses a way back to physical existence. The implications were staggering. Is that even possible? With the right components, yes. Each modified bloodline represents a different aspect of the transformation matrix. You are the keystone, the one who can see how all the patterns fit together. But we need the others. All of them. Through the ship's sensors, I could feel the shadow's presence growing stronger in nearby space. The trapped ships wouldn't remain trapped for long, and there would be others. We were in a race now, to find the other modified humans before the shadow's agents could eliminate them. As we accelerated toward Europa, I reviewed the genetic data of our next target. Dr. Sarah Chen, a quantum physicist working on Jupiter's ice-covered moon, carried within her genes another piece of this cosmic puzzle. According to her file, she had a gift for understanding quantum entanglement at an intuitive level. What the file didn't say, but I could now see in the pattern of her DNA, was that her abilities had been designed to complement my own. Together, we would be stronger. But first, we had to reach her before the shadow did. The Nexus surged forward, its living walls humming with determination. Somewhere behind us, the trapped ships began to break free. Ahead lay Europa, and another piece of humanity's last hope. I just hoped we wouldn't have to die again to save her. The gathering. Europa's surface was a maze of ice fractures and crystalline formations, beautiful and lethal in equal measure. The Nexus hovered invisibly above Research Station Galileo, its quantum camouflage making it indistinguishable from the moon's thin atmosphere. Through my enhanced senses, I could see the complex patterns of energy flowing through the station's systems, and the darker patterns that shouldn't have been there. The shadow's agents are already here, I said, studying the quantum distortions around the station's main laboratory. They've infiltrated the security systems. Aria's mental voice carried notes of concern. Dr. Chen's work on quantum entanglement must have drawn their attention. They may not know what she is, but they recognize the danger her research poses. The displays showed Sarah Chen in her lab, working late as usual according to her personnel file. She was in her mid-30s, with quick, precise movements that spoke of a mind operating on multiple levels at once. Even through the surveillance feed, I could see the familiar luminescence in her genetic pattern, the same modifications that had been awakened in me. We can't just walk in there, I said, watching security patrols move through the station. Their movements seemed random, but my enhanced perception revealed subtle patterns that suggested coordination with something outside normal space. Those guards aren't human anymore. No, Aria agreed. The Shadow's agents have already begun the process of quantum corruption. Their physical forms are being altered to serve their masters. She brought up new displays showing biological scans of the security personnel. Their DNA was warped, twisted into configurations that made my newly awakened senses recoil. How do we get her out? We don't. Aria's response surprised me. We need her lab. The quantum resonance chamber she's built, she doesn't realize it, but it's the perfect tool for awakening her dormant abilities. We have to go in. The plan we developed was equal parts brilliant and insane. The Nexus would create a controlled quantum disruption in the station's power grid, similar enough to Europa's natural electromagnetic anomalies to avoid suspicion. During the disruption, Aria and I would enter through a maintenance airlock, using the ship's technology to mask our presence. What we didn't plan for was Dr. Chen herself. The moment we entered her lab, she looked up from her work and smiled. I was wondering when you'd arrive, she said calmly. The quantum fluctuations in local spacetime have been increasing for days. Someone was clearly looking for me. Arya and I exchanged glances. You can sense quantum fluctuations? I asked. Of course. Sarah gestured to her equipment. I built all this to study them. Though I suspect you're going to tell me that's not a coincidence. Before we could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the station. On the security feeds, we could see the corrupted guards converging on our position, their movements now completely inhuman. The Shadow knows we're here, Arya said urgently. Dr. Chen, there's no time to explain everything. But you felt it, haven't you? The patterns in quantum fields that no one else can see. The way entangled particles speak to you. Sarah's eyes widened slightly. How do you know about that? Because I see them too, I said, stepping forward. We're the same, you and I, part of something bigger than ourselves. But right now, we need to wake up what's inside you, or we're all going to die. The security feeds showed the guards getting closer, their forms beginning to shift and distort as the Shadow's influence grew stronger. Sarah looked at her quantum resonance chamber, then back at us. What do you need me to do? What followed was either miracle or madness, probably both. Under Arya's guidance, we modified the resonance chamber's field parameters to match the frequency of Sarah's dormant genes. The process was similar to my own awakening, but with the chamber's help, we could control it better, make it less traumatic. As Sarah stepped into the chamber, the first of the corrupted guards reached the lab. They moved like liquid shadow, their forms barely maintaining humanoid shape. I engaged them using my enhanced abilities, seeing the quantum patterns that held their corrupted forms together and disrupting them. The battle was unlike anything in human experience. Reality itself became fluid around us as both sides manipulated quantum fields. The corrupted guards could locally alter physical constants, making weapons useless and armor meaningless. But I could see the patterns in their attacks, could predict and counter them in ways that would have been impossible weeks ago. Through it all, the resonance chamber hummed with increasing power as Sarah's dormant abilities began to wake. Arya maintained the field parameters while I held off the guards, but more were coming. We were running out of time. Then everything changed. The resonance chamber's field suddenly expanded, filling the entire lab with quantum patterns of impossible complexity. Sarah stood in the center of it all, her eyes now swirling with the same colors as Arya's. But where my abilities let me see and manipulate quantum patterns, Sarah's let her control them completely. The corrupted guards froze in place as she took control of the quantum fields holding their twisted forms together. With a gesture, she unraveled the Shadow's influence, returning them to their original human state. They collapsed, unconscious but alive. Well, she said, stepping out of the chamber. That was interesting. But our victory was short-lived. Through the station's sensors, we could see more ships arriving in Europa orbit, the same type of vessels that had attacked us before. And this time, they were not alone. A vast distortion appeared above the moon, a tear in spacetime itself. Through it, we could see what looked like a piece of the Shadow entering normal space, a writhing mass of trapped consciousnesses, their combined agony warping reality around them. We need to go, Arya said urgently. The Nexus can't fight that directly. Wait. Sarah rushed to her computers, copying data files. My research, it's not just about quantum entanglement. I've been studying signals from deep space, patterns in the quantum fabric of reality itself. I think. She paused, looking at us intently. I think I know where we need to go next. The displays showed her data, and with my enhanced perception, I could see what she meant. Hidden in the quantum noise between stars was a signal, a pattern that resonated with our modified genes. Another one of us, I said, understanding. But this signal, it's not coming from anywhere in the solar system. No, Sarah confirmed, finishing her download. It's coming from the Pleiades cluster. And it's not just a signal, it's a cry for help. Through the windows, we could see the shadow's manifestation growing larger, its presence causing visible distortions in Europa's ice field. The Nexus sent an urgent signal. The station's structural integrity was beginning to fail as reality itself warped around us. Make your choice now, Arya told Sarah. If you come with us, you can never return to this life. The shadow knows what you are now, they'll never stop hunting you. Sarah looked around her lab one last time, at the life's work she was about to leave behind. Then she smiled, and I saw in her expression the same mix of fear and determination I'd felt when I first boarded the Nexus. The patterns in my research, she said, they've been leading to this moment. I always knew I was looking for something. I just didn't know it was looking for me too. As we rushed through the disintegrating station toward the Nexus, I realized our little group had just grown more complex, and more powerful. But the Shadow's direct intervention showed that our enemy was getting desperate. The race to find the others, to complete whatever vast plan the Guardians had set in motion, was becoming more dangerous with each passing moment. The signal from the Pleiades beckoned, promising answers and allies. But reaching it would mean traveling deeper into space than any human had gone before, into regions where the Shadow's influence was stronger and reality itself became increasingly unstable. Ready for your first interstellar flight? I asked Sarah as we boarded the Nexus. She looked back at Europa, where the Shadow's manifestation was growing larger by the second. After what just happened? Interstellar travel feels almost normal. But we all knew there was nothing normal about what lay ahead. The Shadow was fully aware of us now, and our next target was far beyond any help humanity could offer. We were on our own. The convergence. The Pleiades cluster burned before us, its stars scattered like diamonds on cosmic winds. From the Nexus's control center, I watched Sarah work with the ship's quantum systems as naturally as if she'd been born to them. In the 3 weeks since leaving Europa, her abilities had grown exponentially. Where I could see and manipulate quantum patterns, she could reshape them entirely, creating new configurations of reality itself. The signal's getting stronger, she said, her hands dancing over the liquid light console. But there's something else too. The quantum noise between stars, it's not random anymore. I extended my enhanced senses, linking more deeply with the ship's systems. She was right. Throughout the cluster, the very fabric of spacetime was changing, becoming more ordered, more purposeful. The Shadow is preparing something, Arya confirmed, her mental voice grave. This region of space is more heavily influenced by their presence. Reality itself becomes negotiable here. The displays showed the phenomenon spreading throughout the cluster. Stars that should have been scattered randomly were forming subtle patterns, their quantum signatures aligning in ways that defied natural law. They're trying to create a stable configuration, Sarah realized, reading the patterns. A region of space where their consciousness can safely manifest in our reality. Which means we're running out of time, I said. If they succeed in creating a foothold in normal space, then Earth won't be their only target, Arya finished. They'll have a base from which to spread their influence throughout the galaxy. The signal we've been following led us deeper into the cluster, to a star system that seemed to flicker in and out of existence as we approached. Our sensors couldn't get a stable read on it, the quantum states of everything within were in constant flux. There, Sarah pointed to a particular oscillation in the chaos. That pattern, it's like looking in a mirror. Whoever's sending the signal, they're like us. But their abilities are operating on a scale I can barely comprehend. As we entered the system, reality itself seemed to become uncertain. Stars appeared and disappeared, planets shifted orbits, and the laws of physics became more suggestion than rule. Only our modified genetics and the Nexus's advanced technology kept us anchored in normal space. The signal led us to what appeared to be a space station, though its architecture defied Euclidean geometry. As we watched, it shifted through multiple configurations, each one more impossible than the last. The quantum resonance. Sarah's voice was filled with awe. Someone's holding this entire region of space together through sheer force of will. A transmission cut through our thoughts, not in words or images, but in pure quantum information. Sarah and I received it simultaneously, our enhanced minds translating it into understanding. "They're dying," I said, reading the patterns. "Whoever they are, maintaining this pocket of stability is killing them." And I paused, seeing deeper into the signal. They're not alone. There are others with them. More like us. The nexus interfaced with the station, creating a docking corridor through the chaos of unstable space. As we crossed over, I could feel the strain in the quantum fields around us, the massive effort being expended to maintain a bubble of normal space in this region. Inside the station, we found them. 5 others with modifications like ours, each with unique abilities that complemented our own. But at the center of their group, maintaining the fields that kept the shadow at bay, was someone I recognized. "Grandmother?" The word escaped me before I could stop it. Emily Chen looked exactly as she had the last time I saw her, 15 years ago before her disappearance. She smiled weakly, her form flickering as she maintained the quantum fields. "Marcus. I knew you'd come." Her voice was strained. "Sarah too. The circle is almost complete." Questions flooded my mind, but there was no time. Through the station's sensors, we could see the shadow's influence growing stronger. The ordered patterns in space were spreading, reality becoming more conducive to their manifestation. "The Guardians knew," Emily explained quickly. "They knew the shadow would find this galaxy eventually. Everything, the genetic modifications, the quantum anchors, my disappearance, it was all preparation for this moment." She gestured, and the station's central chamber transformed, revealing technology that made the Nexus look primitive. At its heart was a device that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. "The final protocol," Arya said softly. "All the pieces are finally in place." Emily nodded. "Each of us represents a different aspect of quantum manipulation. Together, linked through the device, we can do what the Guardians couldn't. We can create a new framework for reality itself, one that can accommodate both physical and transcendent forms of existence. A cure for the shadow," Sarah understood. "Not destroying them, but giving them a way to exist without suffering." "But the cost?" Emily's form flickered again. "The process will change everything. Every consciousness in the galaxy will be affected. Humanity will have to evolve, ready or not." Through the windows, we could see the shadow beginning to manifest. Not just a piece this time, but the full entity, a vast, writhing mass of trapped consciousness that distorted space itself. The ordered patterns they'd created were allowing them to fully enter our reality. "We have no choice," I said, understanding at last why my bloodline was the key. "I can see the patterns, how all our abilities fit together. Like a key made of pure information, unlocking a new configuration of reality itself." We took our positions around the device, each of us connecting to it in our own way. Sarah manipulated the quantum fields, creating a stable framework for what was to come. The others added their unique abilities, probability manipulation, consciousness transfer, dimensional folding, and more. Through it all, I saw the patterns. Not just in quantum fields or spacetime, but in consciousness itself. I saw how awareness could exist in multiple states simultaneously, how reality could be expanded to accommodate forms of existence we'd never imagined. The shadow drew closer, its vast consciousness recognizing what we were attempting. For a moment, I feared they would try to stop us. But then I felt something else from them, hope. The trapped beings within the shadow recognized the pattern too. They understood what we were offering. "Now," Emily commanded. We activated the device together, each contributing our part to the vast pattern. Reality shuddered. The quantum framework of existence itself began to shift, expanding, becoming more complex. I felt my consciousness stretching, becoming aware of new dimensions of being. The shadow's vast form began to change, the trapped consciousnesses within it finally finding a configuration that could exist without pain. Around us, the galaxy itself was transforming, adjusting to accommodate the new framework we'd created. Through my expanded awareness, I could feel humanity beginning to wake up to their new reality. The genetic modifications that had been dormant in so many bloodlines were activating, helping them adapt to a universe that was suddenly much larger and more complex than before. The process seemed to last both an instant and an eternity. When it was done, I looked out at a galaxy transformed. The shadow was no longer a writhing mass of tormented consciousness, but a vast network of beings existing in a state between physical and transcendent. They were still different from us, but no longer trapped, no longer suffering. Emily's form had stabilized, the strain of maintaining the quantum fields no longer necessary in the new framework of reality. She smiled at me, and I saw in her expression the weight of years spent preparing for this moment. The Guardians knew they couldn't solve this problem themselves, she said. They needed beings who could understand both physical and quantum existence naturally. They needed humanity's creativity and adaptability, enhanced by their technology. They needed us. Sarah was studying the transformed space around us with wonder. What happens now? Now, Arya said, her form somehow both more and less alien in the new reality, we learn to live in a much larger universe. The Guardian's role is done. The future belongs to all of us, humans, shadow, and whatever new forms of consciousness emerge in this expanded reality. I looked at the gathered group, my grandmother, Sarah, the other modified humans, Arya, and beyond them to the vast consciousness that had once been the shadow. We had started this journey as separate beings, each carrying a piece of a cosmic puzzle. Now we were something more, not quite human, not quite transcendent, but bridges between all forms of existence. I'm still a maintenance engineer at heart, I said, managing a smile. I suppose there's going to be a lot of new systems that need understanding. The others laughed, the sound carrying layers of meaning in the new quantum reality. Outside, the Pleiades cluster shimmered with possibilities, its stars forming patterns that spoke of adventures yet to come. We had saved humanity, cured the shadow, and transformed the galaxy. But in many ways, our story was just beginning. There would be challenges ahead as humanity adapted to their expanded existence, as we learned to coexist with the beings we had once feared. But looking at the gathered group, my new family in this transformed reality, I knew we would face those challenges together. After all, seeing the patterns, understanding how things connect and flow, that's what we were designed for. And there were so many new patterns to discover.